Good morning. Today I am going to take a class on normal labor. So what is it I am going to discuss today? I am going to discuss the definition of normal labor and the causes of onset of labor, physiology of normal labor, the events that take place in the first stage of labor and the events in the second stage of labor. I have divided this class of normal labor into 3 classes. So the first part will consist of these things. So what is the definition of normal labor? Normal labor means it is a series of events which take place in the genital organs in an effort to expel the viable products of conception like the fetus, placenta, and the membranes from the womb through the vagina into the outer world. This is called as labor. And what does the normal labor consist of? It is characterized by regular uterine contractions, effacement and dilatation of the cervix, and fetal descent. And what do you mean by delivery? Delivery means it is expulsion or extraction of a viable fetus out of the womb. Now here, what is the difference between the labor and delivery? Labor it is only normal, whereas delivery consists of both normal as well as cesarean. Even cesarean comes under delivery. It is expulsion of the viable fetus out of the womb. And labor can be either a normal or abnormal. Abnormal is with the help of forceps or ventouse. Now, what is the definition of normal labor? Labor is called normal if it fulfills the following criteria. These all criteria must be present if we want to call it as normal labor. It has to be spontaneous in onset, and it should be vertex presentation, and there should not be any undue prolongation of the labor, and natural termination should be there with minimum aids and without having any complications affecting the health of the mother or the baby. If the labor fulfills all these following criteria, only then it is called as normal labor. Any deviation from this is abnormal. And usually the labor starts after 37 completed weeks. And if it is before 37 weeks, it is called preterm labor. So now what does abnormal labor mean? It means any deviation from the definition of normal labor is abnormal. But if the presentation is other than vertex like breech or transverse lie or any other presentation, and if there are any complications which occur in the mother or the baby, or if there are any complications associated with vertex presentation which affect the course of labor or modifying the nature of termination, like if there is any if there is any need to use forceps or ventouse, or if it ends up in cesarean, then also it is called abnormal. And if it adversely affects the maternal or the fetal prognosis, it is called abnormal labor. And when is the date of onset of labor, and how do you calculate this date of onset? Usually the date of onset is mostly unpredictable. Not only it varies from case to case, but also from each one pregnancy to the other pregnancy in the same individual. And this date of onset is usually calculated by Naegele's formula, and based on that, labor starts on the expected date only in 4% of the cases. 1 week on either side in 50% cases, 2 weeks earlier and 1 week later in 80% of the cases, at 42 weeks in 10%, and 43 plus weeks in 4% of the cases. Now, what are the causes for onset of labor? And these are all the following hypotheses which explain how the labor starts. First one is uterine distension theory, in which there is stretching effect on the uterine myometrium, not only by the growing fetus, but also because of the Leica rhamni. And this is proven to be true in case of twins and polyhydramnios. And there is also a theory regarding fetoplacental contribution. Next is estrogen and progesterone, how prostaglandins will help in onset of labor. Then oxytocin and formation of myometrial oxytocin receptors and other neurological factors. So this is the first thing where this is the fetoplacental contribution of onset of labor, wherein the hypothalamus in the fetus will release CRH hormone, which acts on the fetal pituitary and causes the production of ACTH hormone. Then this will act on the fetal adrenals and causes the release of cortisol. And this adrenals again they act on the fetal liver and causes the release of dihydroepiandrosterone. And these all they cross over into the placenta, and these now will act on the placenta and cause release of oxytocin, increases the prostaglandins like PGE2 and F2 alpha, then increase the estrogens and reduce the progesterone and increase even the interleukins like 1, 6 and 8. And what happens in the mother simultaneously is in the hypothalamus it is activated and it causes the release of oxytocin, which will now act on the myometrium, and it will increase the myometrial receptors in the mother, which will cause release of prostaglandins and oxytocin. There is also increase in grab junctions, increase in residual prostaglandins like F2 alpha, and increase in the stretch receptor number and sensitivity. And now these all things will lead to uterine contractions, which will lead to labor. Now estrogens. How does estrogen act? Estrogen is released because of the release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary, which will cause increase in the estrogen, and it will help in the synthesis of the myometrial receptors for oxytocin and prostaglandins. It will accelerate the lysosomal disintegration from amnion and decidua, synthesis of myometrial contractile activated proteins, then increases the excitability of the myometrial cell membranes. Now, how does prostaglandins progesterone will act? Progesterone is, it will increase the fetal production of DHEAS and cortisol from the fetal adrenals, which will inhibit conversion of fetal pregnenolone to progesterone, and there is gradual fall in the progesterone levels before labor. This actually it is the altered estrogen progesterone ratio which is actually responsible for the increased synthesis of prostaglandins rather than the fall in only the progesterone levels. There is an alteration in this estrogen and progesterone ratio. Now, how does the prostaglandins act? These are very important factors. These are not only useful, not only for initiation and maintenance of labor, but also for maintenance. And the major site where the prostaglandins are synthesized are the amnion, chorion, decidual cells, and the myometrium. And the synthesis is triggered by increase in the estrogen levels, glucocorticoids, mechanical stretching, in late pregnancy, cytokines, infection, vaginal examination, and even artificial rupture of membranes. Vaginal examination and artificial rupture of membranes also cause release of prostaglandins. And these prostaglandins in turn will increase the grab junctions in the myometrial cells. And this is how the prostaglandins are actually synthesized. And these prostaglandins are very, very important in not only initiation of labor, but also in maintenance of labor. There is activation of fetal hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis, which will cause the release of cortisol from the placenta. And in the placenta, it will cause release of progesterone and estrogens. There is reduction in progesterone production, whereas increase in the estrogen levels. And these estrogens will in turn act on maternal posterior pituitary glands and causes release of oxytocin from maternal pituitary. Whereas what does this progesterone do? It will cause alteration in the balance. This alteration in balance of estrogen and progesterone ratio will act on placenta, amnion, chorion, decidua, and causes the release of prostaglandins like prostaglandin E2 and prostaglandin PGF2 alpha. Not only this, they also cause increase in oxytocins, contractile activated proteins, and nitric oxide. All this will cause activation of the myometrial contractile system, that is increase in the contraction of the uterine muscles. Now oxytocin. How does oxytocin act? Oxytocin receptors are present in the uterus, and these receptors they increase with the onset of labor, and release of prostaglandins from the residua also cause increase in oxytocin. Synthesis of oxytocin increases in decidua and placenta. And what is Ferguson's reflex? Ferguson's reflex is when you do an vaginal examination in a woman who is in labor, or if you do an amniotomy, artificial rupture of membranes, there is increase in the maternal plasma oxytocin level. This is called Ferguson's reflex. And it is at maximum oxytocin. The oxytocin is at maximum level at birth, at the birth of the baby. Fetal plasma levels of oxytocin, they are maximum during spontaneous onset of labor. And what are the neurological factors which will cause to initiation of labor? They can be either through alpha adrenergic pathways or beta adrenergic pathways. And the receptors are present in the myometrium. The contractile response of these is initiated by alpha receptors which are present around the cervix and the lower uterus. Now let's see the contractile system of the myometrium. What are the basic elements which are present in the uterine contractile system? They are the actin, myosin, ATP, the enzyme MLCK, which is myosin light chain kinase, and calcium. Intracellular calcium will bind with calmodulin, forming calcium calmodulin complex. Now this will act on the myosin light chain kinase and causes phosphorylation of myosin, which will now combine with actin and form and will cause myometrial contraction. This is how the uterine contractile system will act. Intracellular calcium will combine with calmodulin, forming calcium calmodulin complex, which will combine with myosin light chain kinase, causing phosphorylation of myosin, which will now combine with actin and will cause myometrial contraction. And with the decrease in the intracellular calcium, there is dephosphorylation of the myosin light chain kinase with inactivation leading to myometrial relaxation. Now, what are false pains? False pains are mostly seen in case of primigravida. Before the onset of true labor pains, which is either by precedes 1 week or 2 weeks in primipara to few days in case of multipare. And what are the cause for these false pains? These are because of stretching of the cervix and the lower uterine segment, which will cause irritation of the ganglia and it will lead to false pains. Also, it is because of the result of resisting of taking up, which will occur before through labor by cervix in the lower uterine segment. Cervix will resist taking up or effacement and dilatation, and this will also will lead to false pains. And what are the features of the false pains? These are usually dull in nature, confined to the lower abdomen and the groin region. They are continuous and not related to any hardening of the uterus. They have no effect on dilatation of the cervix. And usually these false pains are relieved by either enema or by giving sedatives. And what is pre-labor, which is also called as premonitory stage? In this premonitory stage, what will happen is this is usually seen 1 week before the onset of labor in case of primigravida. And the features of this premonitory stage are there is lightening. Lightening is where because of active pulling up of the lower uterine segment around the presenting part, there is fall in the level of the, that is it actually I'll just see. This is how this is called lightening phenomenon, where there is fall in the height of the uterus. The height of the uterus, which is up to the diaphragm in 36 weeks, suddenly there is reduction in the height of the uterus. Because of this, the pressure which is posed by the diaphragm on the lungs and the on the lungs is usually relieved, and mother suddenly feels a relief of the respiratory distress which she is suffering before. There is this lightening is because of there is active pulling up of the lower uterine segment around the presenting part, and it signifies that the lower uterine segment is incorporated into the uterine wall, and this will cause reduction in the fundal height and minimizes the pressure on the diaphragm. And this is actually viewed as a welcome sign because it will rule out any CPD or any other conditions which will prevent the head from descending into the pelvis. And it is a premonitory stage has lightning, then there is a appearance of false pain. False pains are we have just seen before, and it is also associated with cervical changes. Cervical changes are cervix will become soft, less than 1.5 centimeters. It will admit one finger and is dilatable. Now this is how the lightning phenomenon is seen at 36 weeks. The height of the uterus is extending up to the diaphragm, and with entering of the brim into the pelvis, there is fall in the uterine height and relief of the pressure symptoms. And what are true labor pains? True labor pains are, these are painful uterine contractions which come at regular intervals, and the frequency of the contraction gradually increases. The contraction with there is increase in the intensity and duration of the contraction, and it is also associated with show. There is progressive effacement and dilatation of the cervix. There is descent of the presenting part, formation of bag of waters, and these true labor pains are not relieved by sedatives or enema. Now, true labor pain is characterized by labor pains. They are Braxton Hicks contractions which are seen as hardening of the uterus, which are seen throughout the pregnancy, but with the onset of labor, there is change in character of these contractions. Show, what is show? Show, with the onset of labor, there is profuse cervical mucus discharge. Then expulsion of the cervical mucus plug along with blood is called show. And dilatation of the internal os. With labor pains, the cervical canal will start dilating, and this dilatation will start from the upper part and then proceeds to the lower part. Then there is formation of bag of waters, where the lower pole of the fetal membranes bulge into the cervical canal. As it contains liquor, that part which passes below the presenting part is called bag of waters. As the contraction passes, the bulge will disappear. And now let's see, what are the stages of labor? There are 4 stages of labor. The first stage of labor, it starts with the true onset of labor pains and ends with full dilatation of the cervix, and it is called the cervical stage of labor. And the duration of this first stage of labor is, it is usually 12 hours in case of primi and 6 hours in case of multi. And now what is second stage of labor? Second stage of labor will start with full dilatation of the cervix to expulsion of the fetus through the birth canal. And this second stage, it consists of 2 phases, which is the propulsive or the passive phase, the expulsive or the active phase. The propulsive phase, it starts from full dilatation of the cervix up to the descent of the presenting part to the pelvic floor. The expulsive phase or the active phase, it usually consists of maternal bearing down efforts to deliver the baby to the outside world. And the average duration of second stage of labor is, it is usually 2 hours in case of primi and 30 minutes in case of multi. And third stage of labor, it begins with expulsion of the fetus and ends with expulsion of placenta and membranes. And this expulsion of placenta and membranes is also called as expulsion of afterbirths. And it's not only the placenta, it is also the membranes. The average duration of third stage is, it is 15 minutes, both in case of primi as well as multi. And there is also a fourth stage of labor, which consists of observation of the woman 1 hour after expulsion of the afterbirths. And during this period, what do? We have to monitor the maternal vitals, and you have to look for uterine retraction. You have to look for any vaginal bleeding. And during this time, you should also do an examination of the baby and ensure that both mother and baby are fine. Now let's see the physiology of normal labor. What happens in this physiology? During pregnancy, there is both marked hypertrophy as well as hyperplasia of the uterine muscles with increase in the size of the uterus. At term, uterus usually measures 35 centimeters in length, and the fundus is both wider transversely as well as anteroposteriorly and more wider than the lower uterine segment. And uterine contractions in labor. How does the uterine contractions appear? We have seen that they are passive Braxton contractions which will occur throughout the pregnancy. And what is the characteristics of these Braxton Hicks contractions? They are usually irregular, involuntary, spasmodic uterine contractions which are painless. Again, they are irregular, involuntary, spasmodic uterine contractions which are painless. These are called as Braxton Hicks, which are seen throughout the labor. But what happens gradually as the labor sets in? What happens is they come at regular intervals and they become painful, and it is associated again with show and other features. And these Braxton Hicks contractions which are seen during the labor, they do not have any effect on the dilatation of the cervix, and the pacemaker of these uterine contractions is usually situated at the tubal ostia, from where the contractions start and they start spreading downwards. With the onset of labor, they change in character. And what is the pattern of uterine contraction and how does it change with the onset of labor? There is good synchronization on both halves of the uterus and also between the upper segment as well as the lower uterine segment. There is fundal dominance of these contractions, and this fundal dominance gradually decreases in duration. Fundal dominance which will gradually diminish in duration and the intensity from the mid-zone to the lower uterine segment, and there is increase in these contractions. The wave of contraction follows regular pattern. The upper segment contracts more strongly than the lower segment and for a longer duration. The intraamniotic pressure will rise from 20 millimeters of mercury during contraction up to 100 to 200 millimeters of mercury. And these are usually, intraamniotic pressure usually rises only after 20 mm during the first stage of labor, but during the second stage of labor, it is much more. And there is good relaxation is also seen in between these contractions, wherein the intraamniotic pressure will start falling up to 8 millimeters of mercury. Now, there is also pain, and during this, the contractions are also associated with pain, and they are usually situated in the hypogastric region, which start radiating to the thighs. And this pain during uterine contraction is because of there is myometrial hypoxia, stretching of the peritoneum over the fundus, and stretching of the cervix during dilatation, stretching of the ligaments surrounding the uterus, compression of the nerve ganglia, and this pain is usually distributed along the cutaneous nerve of the thigh along T10 to L1. And what are the main features of uterine contraction? There are 4 features which are very, very important for uterine contractions. They are, first one is tonus. What is tone? Tone is the intrauterine pressure in between the contractions. During pregnancy, the uterus is usually quiescent, and the tone, that is the intrauterine pressure during the pregnancy, is usually only 2 to 3 mm of mercury. But during the first stage, it will gradually increase up to 8 to 10 millimeters of mercury, and this tone usually depends on the contractile. And it depends on the contractility of the uterine muscles, the intra-abdominal pressure, and in case the uterus is over-distended, in which we see in case of twins or polyhydramnios. All this will affect tone of the uterus. Next is the intensity. What is intensity? It is the degree of uterine systole. Intensity is the degree of uterine systole. It will usually increase. It will usually increase as the labor advances from first stage, and it is maximum in second stage of labor. It increases from 40 to 50 millimeters of mercury during the first stage up to 100 to 200 millimeters in case of second stage of labor. And the third stage, it is usually same as that seen in case of second stage of labor. Next is the duration. Duration is in the first stage, the contractions usually last for 30 seconds initially, and they will gradually increase in duration as the labor progresses. And they last longer in case of second stage than the first stage of labor. Next is the frequency. Frequency is the interval at which the contractions come. During the first stage, they usually come at every 10 to 15 minutes, and this frequency is usually shortened with progress of labor, and they come at every 2 to 3 minute interval during the second stage of labor. Now we'll see what is retraction. Retraction is a unique phenomenon of the uterine muscle. The phenomenon of the uterus in labor, in which the muscle fibers are permanently shortened once and for all, is called as retraction. And there is a huge difference between retraction and contraction. Contraction is temporary reduction in the length of the fibers, and these fibers will attain their full length during relaxation. But in retraction, what happens is they are permanently shortened once and for all. So in this picture, we will see. First is relaxation, there is contraction, and once the contraction passes, the muscle will attain its full length. But what happens in progressive retraction? The muscle is permanently shortened and it attains shortened stage once and for all. This is the difference between contraction and retraction. Then now we'll see what are the effect of retraction in case of normal labor. Retraction, it is very essential property in the formation of lower uterine segment and also helps in dilatation and effacement of the cervix. To maintain the descent of the presenting part made by the uterine contractions and will help in ultimate expulsion of the fetus. It reduces the surface area of the uterus, favoring separation of placenta, and it also provides effective hemostasis after separation of placenta. Now we will see what are the events during the first stage of labor. The first stage of labor is the preparation of the birth canal to facilitate the expulsion of the fetus in the second stage. So first stage is mainly a preparatory stage where the uterus is preparing for expulsion of the fetus. And what are the main events that take place in the first stage of labor? They are the dilatation and effacement of the cervix and formation of the lower uterine segment. So what is dilatation of the cervix and what are the predisposing factors which will help in dilatation of the cervix? Dilatation is, first there is softening of the cervix, fibromusculoglandular hypertrophy, increased vascularity, there is accumulation of fluid in between the collagen fibrils, then breaking down of this collagen fibrils by the enzymes elastase and collagenase, changes in the glycosaminoglycans in the matrix of the cervix, and these all changes in the cervix will help in dilatation and softening of the cervix, and this is controlled by the hormones estrogens, progesterone, and relaxin. Now, what are the actual factors that are responsible for the dilatation of the cervix? My first one is the uterine contraction and retraction. How does this help in dilatation? The longitudinal muscle fibers of the upper segment are attached with the circular muscle fibers in the lower segment and the upper part of the cervix in a bucket holding fashion. See, this is how they are attached. The upper longitudinal fibers are attached to the lower circular fibers of the lower uterine segment and upper part of the cervix in a bucket holding fashion. So with each contraction, not only the canal, so when there is contraction, the canal is opened from above downwards. So with each contraction, not only the canal is opened from above downwards, but it is also becoming shorter and retracted. So when the upper segment contracts and retracts, pushing the fetus, the lower segment and the cervix dilate in responses to the forces of contraction of the upper segment. This coordination, see, when the upper segment contracts and retracts, retraction is shortening of the upper segment. So when the upper segment contracts and retracts or it becomes thick, the lower segment will start dilating from above downwards, and along with that, it will start pushing the fetus into the lower uterine segment and the upper part of the cervix. So this coordination in between the fundal contraction and cervical dilatation is called polarity of uterus. Now, the next thing which will help in dilatation is fetal axis pressure. How does this help? In labor, what happens when the head is well fitted on the cervix? The fetal vertebral column is straightened and the contraction of the because of the contraction of the circular muscle fibers. See. So in labor, when the head is well fitted on the cervix, the fetal vertebral column is straightened because of the contraction of the circular muscle fibers, which will allow the strong fundal contractions to be transmitted through the fetal podalic pole to the vertebral column of the fetal head, and it will in turn lead to mechanical stretching of the lower uterine segment as well as dilatation of the cervix. And this phenomenon is absent in case of transverse lie. And with each progressive contraction and retraction, the upper segment will become shorter and thicker, while the lower segment will become thinner and wider. And it will lead to dilatation of the cervix. The next one which will help in dilatation is bag of membranes. The membranes like amnion and chorion are loosely attached to the decidual lining except over the internal os. In vertex presentation, what happens? The girdle of the contact of the head being spherical will fit lower uterine segment well. So the amniotic cavity is now divided into two compartments. See, the girdle of contact being the head will fit the lower uterine segment well. Because of this, the amniotic fluid is divided into two compartments. The part which is present below the head and which is along with the fetus above the girdle of contact. So now the part which is present below the girdle of contact is called forewaters, and the part along with the fetus is called hindwaters. So one below the girdle with very amount of liquor is called forewaters, and above the girdle along with the fetus and bulk of liquor is hindwaters. And what happens with the onset of labor? The membranes which are attached to this lower uterine segment, they are detached, and with increasing uterine pressure and contractions, there is herniation of these membranes through the cervical canal. Uterine contraction also generates a hydrostatic pressure in the forewaters, which will further help in dilatation of the cervix. Next is visa turgo. What is this? This is the final phase of dilatation and retraction of the cervix. There is downward thrust of the presenting part and upward pull of the cervix in the lower uterine segment. This is called visa turgo. And this phenomenon is usually absent in case of transverse lie. And this phenomenon will contribute to final phase of dilatation of the cervix. Now, what is effacement of cervix? Effacement is the process by which the muscle fibers of the cervix are pulled upwards and these merge with the lower uterine segment. It is called effacement. The cervix will become gradually thin during the first stage of labor. In primary, what happens is this effacement of the cervix will precede dilatation. And in multi, both effacement as well as dilatation will occur simultaneously. So this is how the effacement and dilatation of the cervix will take place. First, the cervix is very thick, but actually with the uterine contraction, retraction, and other fetal axis pressure, and also we have seen the action of bag of membranes, the cervix will start dilating from above downwards. So the cervix will gradually become thin, and there is thinning of the cervix, and it is gradually taken up. And finally, in case of D, in the figure D, we have seen the cervix is fully effaced. In A, it is completely effaced, and in C, and in case of D, there is also dilatation. So what happens in primary? First, in primary, effacement will precede dilatation, whereas in multipara, both will take place simultaneously. Now, what is lower uterine segment? Before the onset of labor, there is no anatomical or functional division of the uterus. But during labor, what happens? There is a demarcation of active upper segment and a relatively passive lower segment. The upper segment will become short and thickened, whereas the lower segment will become thin and wide. And this is more pronounced in case of late first stage of labor and second stage of labor. There is a distinct ridge formed in between the junction of these two segments, which is called physiological retraction ring. So this is what will happen. In case of early labor, there is a distinct ridge is seen between the active upper segment and the passive lower segment. And this is called physiological retraction ring. And this will extend from the anatomical internal loss up to the histological internal loss. And this should never be confused with pathological retraction ring, which is usually seen in case of obstructed labor. So the part above this, the physiological retraction ring, it is the active upper segment, and the lower segment is the passive lower segment. And the part which is in between the anatomical internal loss and histological internal loss is the lower segment of the uterus, and it is usually passive. So the lower segment of the uterus, and what is the clinical significance? It is usually developed from the isthmus portion of the non-pregnant uterus, which is bounded above by the anatomical and below by the histological internal loss. In labor, it is bounded above the physiological retraction ring and below by the fibromuscular junction of the cervix and the uterus. This segment is formed maximum during the labor, and peritoneum is usually loosely attached over the lower segment of the uterus. And in fully formed lower segment usually measures 7.5 to 10 centimeters, and it is becoming cylindrical during the second stage of labor. And the wall will gradually become thin because of the relaxation of the muscle fibers with elongation. The muscle fibers are drawn up by the muscle fibers of the upper uterine segment by contraction and retraction, and also descent of the presenting part will cause stretching and thinning out of the wall. This segment has got poor retractile property when compared to the upper uterine segment. And what is the clinical significance of this lower uterine segment? The phenomenon of receptive muscle contraction and expulsion of the fetus by formation of the birth canal along with full dilatation of the cervix. Implantation of the placenta in the lower uterine segment is called as placenta previa, and it is through this segment that caesarean section is usually performed. Poor decidual reaction in this segment will facilitate morbidly adherent placenta once the placenta is implanted here. And in case of obstructed labor, the lower segment is very much stretched and thinned out and ultimately gives way or it ruptures, especially in case of multipara. It is entirely the passive segment of the uterus. Because of the poor retractile property, there is a chance of PPH if the placenta is implanted in this area. So these all will constitute clinical significance of the lower uterine segment of the uterus. Now let's see what are the events which take place during the second stage of labor. The main events are there is descent and delivery of the fetus to the birth canal. And we have seen that the second stage of labor consists of two phases. One is the propulsive phase and next is the expulsive phase. Propulsive phase is the passive phase where there is descent of the head after full dilatation of the cervix, and this head will now touch the pelvic floor. And expulsive phase is when the head is, and because of the bearing down efforts of the mother, there is delivery of the baby. This is the active phase. Now this is how, with full dilatation of the cervix, what will happen? There is rupture of the membranes with the escape of the Leica rhamni, and uterine contraction and retraction will become stronger, and the uterus is elongated because of the contraction of the circular muscle fibers, and delivery is accomplished not only because of the downward thrust by the uterine contractions, but it is also supplemented by the voluntary contraction of the abdominal muscles, which is called bearing down efforts. The uterine contraction as well as contraction of the abdominal muscles together is called bearing down efforts, and there is tendency to push the fetus back into the uterine cavity by elastic recoil, which is countered by retraction. Retraction will help in countering this elastic recoil, and with retraction, delivery of the fetus is gradually accomplished against the resistance offered by the pelvic floor. After expulsion, the uterine cavity is now permanently reduced, which we have seen as a unique phenomenon of retraction, which is only seen in case of uterine muscle. So, thank you.